All right, 5:34, Hall of Fame writer John McClain joins us, SicEm365 Radio, Tuesdays in the 5 o'clock hour. John, how was Florida?
It was great. Had a blast, as always. Great place to go and get away from the hubbub of Houston and be around a lot of crazy people.
Well, so let's get right back in the hubbub of Houston. Texans, of course, in training camp, the NFL just around the corner. Is Taylor automatically the starting quarterback when the season begins, or is there going to be a push with Mills or whoever else?
I'm glad you brought that up because I just wrote a column for tomorrow that's on our sports website, TexasSportsNation.com, about Tyrod Taylor as a starter. It's the first time the Texans have gone into training camp with three new quarterbacks all new quarterbacks since their expansion season of 2002. And that would be Tyrod Taylor's a starter, Jeff Driscoll's the backup, Davis Mills, top pick, third round. He's number 3, trying to work his way up. And as I've told people, the single most important thing the Texans have to do this season is not win games, because the worse they are, the higher the pick they're going to get. And everybody thinks they're going to be terrible. The most important thing they can achieve is they have to see Davis Mills at some point, and they have to see him enough to determine, can this guy be our quarterback? If he can, that has a huge impact on the 2022 draft. If he can't, that has a huge impact on the 2022 draft. Now, he played 14 games at Stanford. He started only 11. You know, his last season, junior year, was curtailed by Stanford's going to cancel the season. Then they decided to play. And so if he stayed in school, he might have been a top 10, maybe a top 5 pick, but he came out. They like everything about him so far. He's 6'4.5". He's 225. He's got a 36 on his Wonderlic out of 50, which makes him one of the smartest guys in the draft. But he didn't have a lot of experience in college, so he's got to work his way up. I think that they have a bye week after 9 games. That gives them 8 games left. First one's at Tennessee, then 3 in a row at home. He's got to start those last 8 games, because if he can be the guy, they're going to have a high pick, and they may have another pick or 2 in the first round for Deshaun Watson, and they could use that high pick on a position player. If Davis Mills is not going to be the guy, then they're going to have to use that first pick on a quarterback. And right now there's no Trevor Lawrence out there, but it doesn't mean there's not going to be a Kyler Murray, a Joe Burrow, or a Zach Wilson, guys who were not looked at, highly regarded at all going into their last year of college. Kyler Murray wasn't even a starter. And so that's how about Davis Mills can impact the draft. Now, people have asked me, well, what if they've got Tyrod Taylor and they're winning? And I said, well, I mean, my God, then they should cancel the season and give David Culley Coach of the Year, and they should give Nick Caserio Executive of the Year, because if they're winning through those first 9 games, they'll be the biggest surprise in the NFL. But I don't see that happening, so it's a moot point.
John, do you expect Tim Kelly to completely change his offensive philosophy from last year to this year without Deshaun Watson and really commit to running the ball? And I know that their stable of running backs is not a lot of guys that, have maybe a lot of tread on the tires left.
Well, Paul, that's an interesting thing. It's not so much change the offense. It would be change the game plan and the play calling. He said when we talked to him the last week of the off-season program, he had called more running plays. Last year, they called the fewest in team history, and they had the second fewest yards rushing in team history to 2002, their first season, because Watson played great and had been foolish to call more running plays because he was playing so well. But now Watson's not going to be the starter. You have David Culley coming from Baltimore, where they led the league in rushing the last 2 years. GM Nick Caserio, who's also like an extra coach at practice on offense. He comes from New England, where they always tried to have balance. They were, I think, 4th in rushing last year. So they want to run the ball more. They've got 4 veteran running backs, David Johnson, Mark Ingram, and Phillip Lindsay, all of whom have had 1,000-yard seasons. Philip Lindsay had 2. Then he got hurt last year. Mark Ingram had 1 in 2019. He's had 4 in the previous 6 years. But he's 30 years old. David Johnson's 29. Lindsay's still 26. So they're hoping those guys can help generate a running game behind an offensive line that'll have 3 new interior starters. So, yes, they want balance. As you guys know, a good running game at any level is a great equalizer for either an inexperienced quarterback or a defense that's not very good.
John, with J.J. Watt gone and Deshaun Watson in limbo, who would you say is the current face of the Texans franchise?
Boy, it'd have to be the head coach, David Culley, because, he's the one that's out front, the one that's in the media the most. And I really like Culley. You talk about a great guy, energy, offense. He's got a personality that's just built around being positive. It's the way he's brought up. It's the way he's always been. People ask me, well, how's he going to be if they're 1-8? Like there's something wrong with being positive. I say people that are optimists always look for something positive. People who are pessimists always look for the negative. And that's Tully's not going to change his personality about whether or not they're losing. And so I would say it was him because it's usually a great runner, a great receiver, a quarterback, or a guy like J.J. Watt, a premier defensive player. And they don't have any of that right now. They've got Brandon Cooks, their best offensive player, coming off a really good season with 81 catches and almost 1,200 yards. And they don't have anybody on defense. So they do not have a face of the franchise that they've had going back for, a decade.
So when we see guys here in Waco and girls as well, they're here for 4 or 5 years and then they rotate out and there's a new cast of faces. And you've seen plenty of players come and go, but is it sort of strange to not be talking about J.J. Watt at this time of year or leading into training camp?
It's weird. It was weird last year not talking about DeAndre Hopkins. It's weird now knowing Watt's not going to be there. It's weird knowing Watson's not going to be there. We've known this for a while, though, and people are adjusting. Everything is new. They have 50 new players. 42 of them are veterans. Their whole off-season program was about all these new players, 3 new quarterbacks, learning new systems, new teammates. Everything is new. And because they can't hit till they start playing preseason games, and there's only 3 preseason games, they put on pads camp, but they don't take guys to the ground. They're constantly saying, stay off the ground. That's where you get hurt. So they really don't know what they have. They do from a mental standpoint as far as teaching a guy in a classroom and then say, okay, take it out on the field and let's see if you get it right. And he may be really smart, but doesn't mean he can play football. And he may be kind of dumb to learn, but it might turn out to be a great football player if you can teach him in a way that is best suited to his capabilities, whether it's physical or mental.
Lovie Smith, and I know I like the guy so much, but how much can he make a difference immediately? He seems to be successful everywhere he's been. I know he's been on some staffs that were really good too, but he always made a difference, it seems like. Even at Illinois, they turned the corner. They just weren't going to ever compete in that conference with some of the other teams. But how much of a difference can he make, if at all, early on?
He's putting in his 4-3. It's the first time they haven't had a 3-4 base defense since 2010. So that requires a lot of changes in your front seven. And he's got a lot of new guys. He has 15 defensive linemen. 8 of them are new. 3 of the ones who are not new were former outside linebackers in a 3-4, Whitney Merciless, Jacob Martin, and Jonathan Grenard. So those guys are trying to make the transition in, putting their hand in the dirt. And then he's got 10 linebackers. 8 of them are new. So that is 16 new players up front. And he's got to find 4 starters in the defensive line. And I couldn't tell you who's going to start. I don't know if he could right now because they haven't seen him hit and stuff the run and get after the quarterback. And then at linebacker, the only thing I know for sure is Zach Cunningham, a veteran, is going to start in the middle of his 4-3, and he'll have 2 new outside linebackers. And I'm going to write a story Sunday that'll be on our sports website, TexasSportsNation.com, about Lovie and his son Miles, who's coaching the linebackers. And listening to Miles talk about his daddy, he has some great lines. In fact, a lot of the players had great lines talking about Lovie because he's so popular. He and David Culley are a lot alike. And the fact that Lovie was hired, former two-time NFL coach, college coach, David Culley being 65, 3 years older than Lovie, but has never been a head coach in a 27-year NFL career. You talk about having somebody next to him that you can talk to about being a head coach and any experience that comes up. Lovie will be invaluable, not just as defensive coordinator, but also as an assistant head coach helping David Culley.
John, we've had RG3 on the show a couple times, and he says that he wants to play and still wants to play, but in the interim, we've heard that ESPN and Fox would both like him to come on and be a broadcaster. If you're in his position, what do? Do you hold out for an offer to be a backup for a little while longer, or do you take the TV money and run?
Well, I told him I wish he'd go to ESPN so I could see him on my favorite show, which is College Game Day every Saturday during the season. I learn more about college football from watching that show, and I don't miss it. And I'd love to see him on there. I'd love to see him doing studio, whether he's doing analysis on college games. And ESPN is just more popular than Fox. And I think even if he held out for a job and he didn't get one, those offers are not going anywhere next year. And I know at his age, it's awful young to start a second career, but man, when you're in demand, and that's a big change, he has to decide, do I walk away from my career and start over when I've got these options for good money, or do I hold out for another offer? And that offer is going to be as a backup. So if he wants to play, I hope he gets an offer. And if he's ready to start that next part of his career, there's no doubt he's going to be dynamic no matter what he does. But I'd much rather see him on ESPN than Fox because that's what I watch.
John, thank you. Appreciate your time.
Thank you, guys. SicEm.
John McClain, SicEm365 Radio, also Houston Chronicle. John also dropped a couple of nuggets with me. I'll next week remind me to ask him a little bit more about the Lawrence Elkins Don Truhl interview from last Thursday that we will put up in the premium section of SicEm365.com tomorrow morning. Not sure about the exact time. The hour, 23 minutes with two iconic names in Baylor athletics history. When we come back, Paul Catalina's top 5